God, just, this feels good. This feels really, really good. If you're into heritage timeless products, investing in your first Barbour jacket is an inevitable rite of passage for most people. On this video, I'm going to talk about why, despite the fact that I almost pulled the trigger on a Barbour jacket many times, I ultimately ended up with this, the Tom Beckbe Coggins jacket. Now, my intention is not to try to dissuade anyone from getting a Barbour jacket. They are about as legendary as it gets. Really, it's just to share the dilemma that I went through trying to choose my Barbour jacket, what kept me from pulling the trigger, and why ultimately the Tom Beckbe jacket ended up being exactly what I had been looking for all of these years. So for anyone that's been contemplating getting a Barbour jacket, as you watch the video, if you find that your preferences maybe align a bit to my crazy self, then this is a jacket that is worthwhile taking a look at, especially if you're in the US where they offer free returns. So let's get into it. Before I get into why the Tom Beckbe, let me explain why not the Barbour. And this has nothing to do with a brand or quality. It's purely from a design perspective. And really what it came down to is the fact that I felt like no matter what model I would have ended up going with between the three that I distilled it down, the core ones, the Bedale, the Beaufort, and the Ashby, I would have been making at least a couple compromises. And with this being a jacket that I wanted to buy for life, I didn't want to have that nagging thought of, man, if only this one had that feature from that one. So I'll run through the three different jackets, the compromises that I experienced, and then I'll talk about why the Coggins ended up solving for all of those, where there was no compromise, but beyond that, there were a number of things in the Coggins that I couldn't get in any of the Barbour jackets that I actually really appreciated. I mean, Barbour jackets are good enough for English royalty. They should be good enough for me, but this is how freaking nitpicky I am. I can't help it. Okay, so starting off with the Beaufort, which I would say is overall the closest in feature set as well as length to the Coggins. Unique to the Beaufort, I love the hidden Napoleon pocket that it has, where you can close a jacket and access that zippered pocket without having to open your jacket. I think especially when you're traveling with a longer type coat, you're using those bellows pockets a lot, but when you're sitting down especially, having a pocket up here is great. Also unique to the Beaufort is that it has that iconic game pocket, right? It's a jacket that's designed for hunting. That is its intended use. I don't hunt, that is a me problem. While I love the fact that I could just stash bulkier things in that rear pocket, I do prefer the rear vents that you get in both the Bedale and the Ashby, especially for a longer jacket where when you're sitting down in your car or sitting down somewhere else, having that rear vent, being able to unsnap it allows you to just sit down, plop your butt much more comfortably without feeling restricted with the coat. So that's compromise number one. And then the second compromise is Barbour, for their readily available models, because there's a million limited edition collaboration models with both the Bedale and the Beaufort, they've moved away from the more gold finish brass hardware, the snap buttons, right? And I felt like I had to go with sage. I mean, they have olive, which is super popular. I prefer their antique olive, but it's not as readily available. And their olive color, which I'll get into in more detail when I talk about the Ashby, is more brown than green at first. As it ages, it starts to become more and more green, but whenever you re-wax it, it goes back to its more brown color. And I just wanted that like forest heritage classic green that you get in the sage. And the contrast between that green and the more goldish snap buttons, I feel like is amazing. With both the Bedale and the Beaufort, you get more of like a pewter silver subtle finish, and I just want a little bit of pop in my jacket. So moving on to the Bedale, right? That's one of the things that is a compromise for me, not having that. You get the rear vents, which is great, but then the other thing that I don't love about the Bedale, candidly, is just you get the storm cuffs, right? They're like ribbed cuffs that go underneath. They serve a purpose, it prevents wind from getting in there, but like a few things, right? One, it is cotton. So if you get caught in a downpour, that's gonna get wet and it's gonna take a long time for it to dry out. Secondly, is just that ribbed fabric. Over time, the tightness of that weave is gonna loosen up. And it's just like one more thing that can be a point of failure in the jacket. Yes, you can send it into Barbour to get it replaced. But the other thing is, it is a jacket designed for layering. I always wear a watch, and I just feel like having that ribbed cuff, which I have in other jackets, when you're layering, getting in and out is not as easy. It just creates a slightly cumbersome experience. So given the choice, I would rather not have those storm cuffs. And then lastly, on the Ashby, right? I would say out of the three, probably the one that checks off the most boxes and the one that I was closest to pulling the trigger on, has a more modern, tailored fit. For me being pretty slim, I felt like I still had enough room for layering, but maybe I would have wanted a little more, whereas the Bedale and the Beaufort are a boxier, roomier, more comfortable, but less sexy fit, if you will. With the Ashby, you get the rear vent, you get the gold hue brass hardware. You don't get the Beaufort incognito pocket, and it comes in olive, and it doesn't have a sage colorway, so I would have had to settle for a more brownish green, and not having that pocket, which is not a deal breaker, but it's really nice to have. Okay, so with the Coggins, for anyone that's unfamiliar with Tom Beckbe, one can say that they are the Barbour of the US, minus the crazy history. They haven't been around since the late 1800s. They've only been around for 10 years, but similar to Barbour, they've created a fantastic reputation for making beautiful, rugged, yet very classic, well-constructed jackets, and they have hunting in their DNA. They're from Alabama. The majority of their jackets are produced there. The Coggins is actually the only one in their collection that is made in the UK. This one is unfortunately a limited edition. It's a collaboration with David Coggins that came out last month in March. And David Coggins is bon vivant, Renaissance man, quintessential American, rugged, classic gentleman. He's a writer, a journalist, talks about travel, design, fashion, and he just dresses in a very like effortless, timeless, heritage sort of way. From what I've gathered, every collaboration that he's done has been absolute gold, and this one is nothing short of that. But yeah, as far as why this, not the Barbour. So one, the amazing Beaufort, like Napoleon hidden pocket. You get that right here on this guy, but you don't have a game pocket. It's a longer jacket. You get the rear vents instead. Lengthwise, I believe it's about an inch longer than the Beaufort, so it is the longest out of all of them. Fit-wise, one thing I really appreciate is that it's not quite as tailored as the Ashby that I know for a lot of people, especially people that aren't on the slender side. The Ashby fits great if you're light layering under, but if you're putting like thicker sweaters, not as well. This sits somewhere in between the Ashby and where the Bedale and the Beaufort sit, where they're a boxier, roomier cut. Beyond that, it comes in this beautiful forest green Hallie Stevenson's wax canvas. It's 8 ounces instead of 6 ounces, which I actually like. It has a little bit more structure than the Barbour, but it still feels light and really comfortable. They've gone with the brass, that antique brass finish for all the hardware, as well as on the zippers. The zipper tape is this really classy navy blue that I feel like complements the whole thing really nicely. And then the corduroy itself, they're using this like caramel cognac color that I've seen on, I think like the 100-year anniversary of the Bedale or the Beaufort, I think the Bedale. They've used a similar combination in the past, but not in like readily available models. And I love the contrast of that with the green. So yeah, in that sense, there's no compromise, but the cherry on top is a few additional things that they're doing, which I really appreciate. So with the cuffs of this one, I have it rolled back, like that's my like go-to setup, but you get snap cuffs on the Coggins, and it's one of those things that on the Barbour options, I always like wish they had that. Definitely prefer over the storm cuffs. Then with the Beaufort, you have like little Velcro internal action going on. I get it's designed for hunting. It's to prevent you from like accidentally like unsnapping this off. But for anyone that's not super hardcore and using it for hunting, the nice thing about these snap cuffs, right, is that you get 2 different tightnesses, and if it's actually raining hard or if I'm riding my motorcycle, being able to have it like that is super nice. And then when I'm not in that mode, I just clip it on and I do a quick rollback action. Second thing that I really like on the Tom Beckbe is with the Bedale and the Beaufort, they are a boxier, like roomier fit, so they're very comfortable as well. With this one and their hunting DNA, you get gusseted shoulders, so you get insane mobility with this jacket, which just makes it like really, really comfortable for both day to day as well as for traveling. Another one is I didn't grow up in Europe, and so intuitively I'm a right-handed zipper guy, right? I have a couple jackets that are on the left side. I've adapted, I've gotten used to it, but given my choice, I would rather a right-handed zipper. You get that with this being an American company. And then the other two things are I already talked about, like the Highland green color in combination with the caramel corduroy. But I do like the 8-ounce Hallie Stevenson's wax canvas over the 6 ounces. Just has a little bit more heft, makes it feel a little bit more rugged. This one in particular feels more like Barbour's silk oil wax finish, that matte dry over the wet look. I like them both, but I think I prefer the matte overall. What is it about the rain? To me, when you're in that like gloomy psych thriller rain weather, you got your wax canvas jacket on, you can zip it up. You know what? Feeling a little restricted here. Bam, little ninja action. A little restricted here with the vents, no problem. It's starting to come down a little bit. If I need to go in like ninja recon mode, right? That corduroy, she thrives. This action for when it's raining hardcore, which I really like. Now you don't have like the additional zippers for like integrating a hood or Barbour's like integrated liner. I don't really care about that, to be honest. But for anyone that does, you don't get that in this jacket. Last thing I want to talk about is the liner, right? So Barbour, I mean, it's hard to beat in that sense. Their iconic tartan lining. But two things worth noting. One, I actually really like the Alabama clay cotton liner that Tom Beckbe is using. But I feel like there's, in the Barbour community, some polarizing thoughts around the Ashby for two reasons. One, they're making in Moldova, which if I'm not mistaken, the Bedale and the Beaufort, I think they're shifting production, at least partially there. I'll have to take a closer look. But given the fact that the Ashby costs pretty much the same amount as the Bedale and the Beaufort, you don't get the same body liner fabric running all throughout. And instead you get a polyester satin liner, which objectively, I mean, it's a less premium material. So I get people are like, well, it should maybe like cost less or whatever. I want it all throughout. With Tom Beckbe, you actually also get a polyester satin liner, but I prefer it. Tom Beckbe is a niche brand. They are making stuff with zero compromises, exactly how they would make it for themselves. This was very much an intentional decision, and having that polyester liner makes it so that your arms can glide so much more effortlessly through the jacket when you're putting it on, taking it off, especially with this being a layering jacket. I feel like it's a game changer. Given the choice, I would rather keep it as is. One of my favorite jackets, the Freno cloth Rider's jacket, wax canvas, also a company that is not taking any shortcuts whatsoever, and they have also intentionally not given you their like amazing 100% Japanese cotton liner. You get a polyester satin liner as well. But yeah, I'm kind of sad that this is a limited run collaboration, but given the fact that it just launched last month, which by the way, Tom Beckbe did not send me this jacket. I paid for it. I wish they sent it to me. I'm curious for anyone that maybe has gotten hung up on the same little nuanced design elements as I have on those Barbour jackets, what your thoughts are. I am expecting the cult Barbour leaders to come out with the pitchforks. I am ready for it. I will own a Barbour jacket at some point, I'm sure of it. And for anyone that's a Tom Beckbe person, like, what are your thoughts? I've been eyeing out their jackets for 5 years now. Really like their Tensaw, but like the permanent popped up collar is not for me. But yeah, I'm really glad that they came out with this. I'm gonna be doing a separate video probably on their Stewart jacket as well, which is also a work of art. Kind of Barbour alternative, but less so than this one. I feel like it has a bit more of a rugged look, but best of luck and cheers.